Hello everyone and welcome back to the VCO Esports studio. It's the month of May, one of the best months in global motorsport, but today we'll focus on one more of our great sim racing representatives. Last time we talked to a sim racing commentator. Today we talk again with a driver that's been across of the disciplines in the sim racing universe. Coanda Esports and Zach Campbell join us here today. Zach coming off what was a rather eventful most recent round in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Zach, how are you doing today?
Doing all right. I'm just woke up about an hour and a half ago, so got my coffee in me, and I'm ready to answer some questions.
Sounds like a classic sim racer. They roll out of bed into the sim rig. Let's go back in time though, Zach, and the first question that we tend to always ask is, how do you get interested in motorsports? Let's not even talk about sim racing first. Let's just talk about motorsports.
So I guess I kind of got into it because a few of my cousins were into it on my mother's side of the family. And so my family was never really interested in it. And, growing up in the South in the mid 2000s, you were inevitably a NASCAR fan in some way, shape, or form. So I kind of got sucked into it that way. And then, yeah, just always really liked it since, I basically as long as I can remember. And so just started to kind of get into the NASCAR side of things and then, into the IndyCar side immediately after that. And just always been interested in any form, any discipline. It's something to where I'm not very picky about it. They're fast cars, they're loud, hard not to like them.
I think the sense of competition is also something that you enjoy. How did you get started then in sim racing though? You talk about, the exploration in NASCAR, IndyCar. I'm guessing some of your first steps also came on the oval side in sim racing.
Yeah, so actually, weirdly enough, I think my first sim racing game was actually GTR 2 when I was like honestly 4 or 5 years old. My cousin had it on his computer, and we used to play it when I was down at his house. And then I got my own copy and started playing it. Eventually, your parents give you a wheel for Christmas. Went through all this titles and everything: NASCAR Thunder '04, NASCAR Sim Racing, NASCAR 2003. So it's always been kind of the deal there where it just kind of always came up. I never really thought that I would do it as a way to support myself until even really into COVID. So, um, I always just kind of did it for fun as a side thing, and had a lot of fun doing it. It's always just kind of been a part of my life in some way, shape, or form.
There comes an inflection point for a lot of people in sim racing. They go from being just a casual competitor to being a little bit more serious about this. You mentioned COVID, you mentioned being able to support yourself from sim racing. When do you recall the first time that you started thinking, you know what, I want to be a little bit more serious about my sim racing?
Uh, Honestly, I think it was probably during COVID in 2020. Like I'd done karting for a couple years beforehand, really supporting myself with just an everyday job in a restaurant, and then COVID hit, karting stopped, world stopped. And to be honest, I'd been doing a lot of IndyCar stuff on iRacing, and so it came to a point where um, you know, at one point I was spending my nights, helping out Jimmy Johnson or helping out Graham Rahal or Takuma Sato on iRacing, and it kind of just came to a point where I was like, well, this is I got nothing else going on right now, so maybe take it a little more seriously. And luckily, I was with the great guys over at Apex Racing Team at that point, so I was already kind of gifted a little bit of a pathway kind of to doing it more professionally, and so I started to take things more seriously and kind of line myself up with the way PESC was going for that next year. So.
Let's go back though. You talked already about being in the World Championships when you talked about getting serious with sim racing, which is really interesting. You joined the Apex Racing team though. I think it was end of 2019, part of the collaboration with Team I5G as well. What was going through your mind as you joined your first, let's say, quote unquote, serious sim racing team? I don't want to. Team I5G is great, but the Apex Racing team
Yeah,
is up there.
yeah.
What was going through your mind as you step up to that level of sim racing immediately?
So to be honest, I actually joined Apex before I5G was even really a thing. So I had really been around with guys like Adam Blocker and Henry Bennett, and those guys. And so I'd been hanging out with them and Michaela Costantini doing IndyCar stuff for a while. And then hanging around in those circles. Kevin Ellis was always kind of around it too because he'd started doing indie fix stuff, so he never really kind of left that part of the community. And so, I mean, we hit it off pretty early, and so I think I never really understood why they added me when I wasn't really taking it seriously. But it was something to where we talked about it, and I got along with a lot of those guys over there, and so they helped me out kind of to start taking a lot of the road racing stuff more professionally because before like I joined I think November or December 2018, and I probably hadn't done any serious road racing on iRacing before March. So it was something to where I kind of hopped in, was okay at the IndyCar stuff, and they kind of took a look at that and was like, well, might as well toss them in. So that was really nice, and that was kind of where all that started. I think it was a lot
And
less professional back then for sure, and it was a little more kind of close knit. Almost, it was a lot more of um, real kind of environment for more friendship than seriousness at that point.
I know you have plenty of fond memories of your time at Apex. I want to talk about the environment and how it enabled you and Kevin Ellis Jr. to go from being open wheel oval racers to some of the best across of all the disciplines. It's a program that has been revitalized, the Apex Racing Academy, here in 2022. What was your experience going back and becoming a World Championship caliber driver with the assistance of so many top level coaches and drivers?
It was honestly really nice. I mean, I think I kind of fell into it at a really nice point. I think uh, Kevin and Johan and everyone over there was always wholly available to give me advice when, to be honest, I really had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was looking for. And so they were always really nice to kind of step up and give advice. And luckily, when I went through the qualifying series for PESC, it was really nice to have Peter Berryman, who'd been in the series before, fallen out of it, and then was trying to get his way back into it. It was really nice to have him go through with me. And so I could have a really solid reference point, someone to really kind of talk about the way to kind of get through things. I do think at that time it was probably a little bit more. It was definitely a lot more intense to make it. So, I mean, the year I made it, I think it was like you had to do 4 SOF races a week and then do the super session at the end of the week. So it was 5 races per week that you had to nail at least two, and then you had to nail the super session. So I think just having those voices in my ear to really be able to kind of coach me through that and kind of keep my mind in the right place through such a demanding format was really nice, and to be able to kind of um, allow them to kind of give me that advice and get me through that. It really kind of helped my growth and really accelerated it in a way that I was very much pleased with.
And so all of this happening in 2020, you mentioned working with so many of these real-world IndyCar drivers during COVID, with everyone flocking to the sim racing world. 2021 rolls around, you're in the World Championship, and now you're representing Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. What did that feel like, just personally for you?
It was really nice. I mean, I have nothing but respect and good things to say about all the people that are over there and were over there, and they really kind of helped us out that year with just legitimizing it a little bit more. I think they were kind of dipping their toes into the sim racing thing, and so it was nice to kind of be able to represent such a great name throughout motorsports history in PESC, and really allow for a good amount of representation there. And I think it legitimizes the series as a whole when you have names in there like that, and I think that legitimizes the industry as well. So it was. I was very happy for me and Kev to be able to kind of carry that name and carry those numbers through that year in PESC.
It was a really great start to that relationship as well, with Kevin winning the main race at Interlagos. You got a couple of podiums in your first season as a rookie World Championship driver. Let's talk about 2021. Let's not talk about what happened at the end of the year. Let's talk about
Hmm.
how are you feeling at the end of that season? 10 races in the World
Hmm.
Championship done, and now you've got the rest of the year looking forward and looking a little bit open. What was going
Hmm.
through your mind heading out of that first World Championship?
Um, Honestly, I think it was that I still had a lot to learn. I'd gone into Pesk, and I think that first season was, I think it was a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting to be very much near the cut line. So to finish, I think it was like eighth in the championship or something. And, that year in Pesk was probably the most competitive year that we'll see in that series. When you look at the names and who was in there and where they were at the time. So it was certainly something to where we got a very good feel for, um, just generally kind of where I was at, and I felt like I had some consistency issues. I certainly had some nervousness issues and some anxiety issues kind of going into those races. So that was something to where I was kind of trying to pick on that. And it was like looking at the rest of the year, it was really just about kind of learning, doing as many races as possible, trying to kind of refine myself. I had basically almost no experience on a lot of road tracks at that point. I was going to a lot of these tracks like Barcelona or Silverstone. I'd driven maybe 5 or 10 laps around them in the sim. I remember having to buy tracks for the first year in Pesk that I had. So it was something to where I just needed that experience, and I needed just a little bit more time and refinement to kind of be able to hone myself a little bit better.
So you're going through this process, you're thinking, I've got to learn, there are things that I want to improve on. When do you start talking with Coanda, and when do you start thinking that maybe you need a slightly different environment to reach the goals that you had for yourself?
So I probably started talking to Coanda. I guess it was probably late May, early June, 2021. I kind of saw within myself, just through a few things, I needed a change. I don't think I was very pleased with the way a couple things were going. And so I saw sort of, hey, maybe there's an opportunity over here. Never hurts to ask. And so I kind of reached out, and lo and behold, there was a few things going on to where there was a good enough opportunity there, and they kind of had a role for me to fill. It wasn't going to be immediate, but it was something to where they were looking to transition a few things, and so they saw a place where I could be a part of that transition. And luckily, it was something to where I talked to them and got something done very, very quickly. And so they were more than happy to kind of onboard me. Everyone at Apex was very gracious about me having that opportunity, and kind of respected my decision to take it, which is something that I'm really thankful for. There's absolutely, it's very hard, I think, for a lot of people when they go from one organization to another, and there's bad blood between that. And luckily, I don't think there was ever bad blood between me and anyone at Apex. I really like those guys. I still like those guys. We still talk. And it was just kind of an opportunity where it fit right, and it was the right time to take it.
Let's talk then about the switchover, the transition. You finished up the VRS SEO Sprint Masters. Wanted to make sure I get the
Hmm.
series title there correct. We had Alex Simpson join us in the broadcast booth to wish you farewell.
Hmm.
What then were you doing at the back half of 2021 when you were starting to branch out of your comfort zone, not just joining Coanda, not just, like you say, learning new road tracks all the time, but now starting to jump over to another couple of simulators as well, doing some SRO Esports, some more virtual series competition
Hmm.
as well. How do you structure your time to make sure you're up to speed on all the different fronts you're competing on?
Yeah. Well, I tried to do SRO esports for a race. It didn't quite work out that way. But I think so. We had it was kind of an awkward transition. I think a lot of the times you see people come into a team at the beginning of the year and they're immediately slide into things. And for me, this was August or September of 21, so there kind of wasn't anything going on. So for me, it was, you know, little bit of help and support for virtual Lama series, and then it was also me kind of almost already prepping for that next pest season. I mean, we had the 991 Cup car going away and bringing in the 992, so everyone really had to learn a new car. So it was a really good opportunity for me to almost get a head start. I remember, with basically almost everybody who was on the Lama virtual program basically also being on the pest program. You get a lot of guys focusing on that instead, because obviously pest being 3 or 4 months away, who's going to focus on that except for someone who has the time. So um, I basically started to go ahead and test for pest that next year, try and find out as much as I could about the car. ran a little bit of DNLS, which was fun. I got to learn the Nordschleife actually instead of just practicing as much as I could before Pesk and trying to cram. Um, so I was able to kind of broaden my horizons with that and almost get a head start on the next Pest season and really kind of hone and refine myself with that car, especially kind of as we transitioned from a 991 that was very finicky and very tough to drive to a 992, which is a little more forgiving and has a few different um, odd characteristics where you kind of have to almost kind of eat into those fine details to really see.
You also came into that first season with the 992 with a year under your belt at the World Championship level, which is so important. So often we see the rookies able to really spring up forward in that second season. And we saw, what, 3 victories from you in the end? I've got to ask,
Mhm.
we saw the lips moving across the line at, was it Interlagos, where language that was unbroadcastable was used. What did it
Mhm.
feel, though, the relief to come across the line and grab that first World Championship win?
To be honest, I don't think it was relief. It was more kind of unexpected in nature. When I kind of came into Coanda, it was really kind of to slot in behind Charlie and Dane. With the Porsche Coanda Esports racing team guys dropping out at that point of Pesk and being able to kind of come in and learn as much as I could off Charlie and Dane, who are obviously Dane's in that program now, and Charlie's still in Pesk with me. Um, we it was nice to be able to kind of learn off those guys, but I didn't expect anything to come that quick. And even going into like that race, for instance, that I won at Interlagos, um, it was kind of unexpected. It just kind of fell into my lap almost in a way. So it was really nice, and I think it certainly helped me a lot. I never really had the confidence going in before to really kind of perform at that level and really think that I did kind of not belongs the right word, but I didn't really feel like I could win at that level quite yet. And so it was a great confidence booster to be able to kind of come out into that season. First round didn't go too well for a multitude of reasons. On the podium at Barcelona, and then after that, just hopping to Interlagos and being able to kind of execute when I needed to. It was really, really nice to be able to kind of go in and have an opportunity like that and gain that confidence level.
You've alluded to it, and so now I'm going to dive into a brief discussion on the Porsche Coanda Esports racing team. It's kind of 2 parts. One, what's it like for you with the weight of expectation that sometimes
Mhm.
comes when you're representing Porsche? But two, you mentioned Dane, Charlie, a couple of these, Josh Mitchell going off to represent Porsche, and you're now effectively one of the few main standing representatives of the regular Coanda Esports team. Did that put some pressure on you when you joined the team as well, knowing that was your role?
No, I don't think so. I think for me, um, I've always had the highest expectations for myself. To be honest, outside expectations have never really phased me. It's not something to where I go into something thinking, "Oh, I don't need to disappoint this person. I don't need to disappoint that person," because to be honest, the buck stops with me. So it's something to where like, hey, if I don't go out and perform one day, I'm the one disappointed myself. I'm going to beat myself up the most, and I'm going to be the one to fix that. So, it really comes down to you can put as much pressure on yourself as you want, but hey, you can't let outside stuff kind of get to you. Yeah, someone can kind of talk to you about it, and they can, kind of set your expectation level, but really if you're setting your expectation level higher, it needs to be kind of where everything stops to a certain extent.
I like that. I like that you put the pressure on yourself more than anything else. You said earlier that you're now supporting yourself from sim racing, so let's dive into that just a little bit as well. You're a college student. A lot of the time in sim racing, we say the younger you are, the more time that you have to practice. You've got to actually practice effectively, though.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. I think a lot of guys have it to where it's a full time job for them, or it's something to where it's their primary thing. And for me, it's not necessarily the case. I mean, I do have to kind of balance things. I mean, if you look at this last pest week, I had finals Monday through Wednesday. Like to me, I have to shut down, you know, to the to a certain extent Sunday through Wednesday. There, I can't touch the sim really because I have to focus on school. So I think it does um, create it creates a divide to a certain extent. I think you see um, it becoming more of a thing. I think a lot of guys, especially now, there's so many guys full time now. You know, for better or worse, it's creating a bit of a divide there. It's hard to keep up. You really do have to kind of discipline yourself, create a real um, time division. You really do have to kind of set standards for yourself to where you have to prioritize what you have to prioritize. And I struggle with that. It's not always easy. Things change week to week, but I mean, to be honest, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can't use not being full time as an excuse. So you have to go out there and just and do your best. Sometimes you just kind of have to put it all out on the table, and and just kind of do the best you can.
You call it a divide, and we haven't seen you in too many of, or any, I think, of our VCO esports competitions. How do you like some of the things that we do, where we allow the fans to have a choice of 2 tracks and we only announce it an hour before? Is that something you'd like to try and limit practice times and bring it to a slightly more even playing field?
Um, to be honest, like it's fun to watch and everything. For me, it's not for me. It's not the kind of racing that I truly enjoy. For me, I'm a big on you can really kind of allow yourself to um it really in like an endurance format or something where the races are a little bit longer, you can kind of allow yourself to just rely a little bit more on that natural talent, especially when you have a great team around you, like the guys on my sweatshirt. It kind of allows you to just kind of put it out on the table a little bit more and just kind of rely on what you have and your own knowledge. I feel like with a lot of those shorter races and shorter formats, sometimes it kind of lends itself to, hey, this person knows this car the best. This person's kind of grinded the best. It's the same thing with any sprint series. I mean, you look at R1 and Pesca and their grinds. Like it's really tough to kind of keep things fresh and keep things from getting stale. So a lot of these sprint race formats kind of rely on a little bit more past knowledge. I mean, to be honest, that's why I think um, out of my experience, I very much enjoyed the virtual Lama stuff. Just being able to kind of go out in an endurance format and really kind of work on yourself. And sometimes, hey, you may not be into it at the start. You get back in the car, and hey, you're refreshed. You can go out there. It just ebbs and flows a little bit more. So, I mean, not to say, I love watching the VCO stuff. I think it's fantastic for the industry, and I think it's fantastic for everyone that it's kind of for. I think it's very entertaining to watch, and I think it's very good. But for me, it just kind of doesn't suit what I really look for and what naturally kind of comes to me.
So we've had this discussion a lot. Esports racing versus sim racing. You want to be doing sim racing, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's um, coming from doing karting and stuff before, and really enjoying it. I do find that I enjoy the real motorsport side more than um, the sim racing side at times. And I think, I mean, that's just personal preference. I think a lot of guys out there, they love the shorter formats, they love the unique formats, and they have a lot of fun doing them. But for me, it's just sometimes sometimes it's not for me. I think I know what I enjoy. With being limited on time a lot of the most of the time, I have to pick and choose the events I want to do. So it's something to where, like, hey, I want to get the most enjoyment out of this as possible. I want to execute the best, and I want to do as good as I can. And sometimes those formats don't really suit me. And I mean, it's hey, everyone has what they like. Everyone kind of performs their own different environment, and so it's just kind of not me. It's not my personal preference, but I think they're plenty of fun to go out there and watch. And I think if I was looking at doing this kind of as super full time, really committing to it, um, hey, I think they would be so much fun to do and really get involved in.
So I guess to wrap up, what do you want to do moving forward in sim racing? The Porsche Esports Super Cup's going to be wrapping up, just a couple of rounds left in 2023, and then I'm sure there's a big question mark about your rest of the plans for this year and moving forward as well. You've joined up with Coanda. You said that you wanted a change when you went from Apex to Coanda. What are you feeling about right now when it comes to your sim racing future?
I think I'm just kind of going out there and hey, Whatever events are out there, I just kind of take a look at my schedule, what I'm available to do, and we commit to things pretty early. I have a decent idea of kind of my later programs. Can't really divulge too much stuff for the rest of the year, but hey, I think I kind of know what I enjoy. I think the team kind of knows what we're about. I think as we kind of go into the future, when we look at um, things like Lamar Virtual Series R1, just kind of as those things expand, and I think there um, certainly a lot of other series that look interesting to me and look like they could be a lot of fun. So I think it kind of comes and goes, and I get to learn what I want to do. I can kind of say, hey, I want to do this, and so I'm very fortunate to be in a place where that's kind of really accepted. And I think it's nice to kind of be encouraged to kind of go out there and if I want to do something, I get prioritized for it. And I'm very lucky to kind of be able to kind of um, allow myself and do what I want. So I think we'll see rest of the year. I have a decent idea, but hey, something comes up, I can hop in and just have fun. Really, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is that these are video games after all.
Yes.
You may be getting paid for it. You may, be, um, you may rely on it a little bit for income, but hey, it's for fun in the end. So if you're not having fun, there's not much of a point to doing it. So, um, going out there and just doing what I want and kind of doing it my own way is a really nice thing. And I think for the rest of the year, that's going to be something that I really look forward to.
Can't wait to see how the season wraps up in PESC, of course, as well. Still the battle for second looking very close. Before we let you go, though, we have to answer the great debate, Zach. What is the greatest racetrack in the world? Is it Indianapolis Motor Speedway or is it Road Atlanta?
It's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Period. End of story. Can't say anything different. By far and away the most fun, the most technical, uh, the most mentally challenging, demanding, whatever you want to say. It's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Period. End of story. There's no other answer.
And let's talk about that very quickly just before we say goodbye, because you once told me that the most stressful thing that you've ever done in sim racing was not compete in a world championship. It was sitting getting ready to roll for one of your 3 qualifying attempts for an Open Wheels 500. Why is it so stressful?
Because you can't screw up. You have to do. I mean, for when you look at something where you only have 3 qualifying attempts at Indy, you have 16 corners and you have 10 miles, and everything has to be perfect. Every adjustment you make on the car over the run, you have to know it, and you can't screw it up. I mean, you're limited there, and so and and like when you look at like a PES qualifying session, takes somewhere like Spa, for instance, you have like 16, 17 corners. You kind of know, hey, listen, if I make 1 or 2 mistakes here trying to push, whatever, like as long as the lab gets done, it's going to be pretty good and it's going to put me in a good place. At Indy, everything's so tight. You have to be perfect because, when you look at the guys who specialize in that in sim racing, you can't you can't kind of wiggle your way in there and do things without being really, really good at it. So you have to do everything perfect, and you can have no mistakes. And so, yeah, that can get the heart rate going and get you a little bit stressed out at times. So.
And I just want to remind everyone that in the World Championships, we traditionally see drivers splitting qualifying by 100.7%, not 107%. So it goes to show just how stressful an experience that is. Zach, thank you so much for taking the time on this Tuesday to chat with us. You've still got 2 rounds of PES to go, plenty more competition to come. You are doing something this Friday, though, that we should very quickly talk about. Twitch.tv/Porsche. What is everyone going to be watching you and Charlie Collins up to this Friday?
We're going to be watching the R1 quarterfinals. So watching mainly the Porsche guys, being able to kind of have a feed on them throughout those quarterfinals. The last round worked really well with us streaming. Everyone did super well in their quarters. So hopefully we can continue that and have another positive weekend and really be able to sit there, analyze things, look at it really kind of in depth, and be able to have a nice fun watch along of that. really looking forward to being there again. Sitting there with Charlie and hopefully watching 4 quarterfinal wins. So.
Can either watch Zach or you can watch me. You can decide who you like better. Zach, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time here in the world of the VCO Esports studio. For now, though, that's going to bring us to a close once more. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with another fascinating guest from the world of sim racing. But for now, for the entire team at VCO, for Steve Proudly behind the scenes producing it, my name is Arjuna Kangipati saying thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. For now, so long and race on.